What's happening, musical astronauts? Trumpeter Bobby Spellman here to welcome you to another episode in our series on playing out. We're taking it out, gang. We're having a lot of fun here. So, for the last couple episodes, we talked about playing outside of the chord changes using either atonal or pantonal melodies. We talked about connecting melodies in an increasingly abstract way from the underlying harmony. We talked about timbral dissonance, coming up with different sounds on the instrument. And today we're going to cover one of my favorite subjects in this field, which is rhythmic dissonance and playing around with varying ways of playing rhythmically out from the underlying groove. So we're going to talk about different approaches to that and have a lot of fun on this episode of
Theory with Bob.
In the same way that you can use contrasting scales and intervallic relationships to create dissonance and tension harmonically, you can use different kinds of rhythms in order to create dissonance and tension rhythmically. This can give a melodic improvisational line a certain kind of motion and a certain kind of atmosphere played over a regular old 4/4 swing groove. This can create a certain amount of tension and drives the music in a certain direction, and it's a really exciting way to play because it creates these multiple temporal effects while you're improvising. Some of my favorite players to employ this kind of playing are Joe Henderson, Woody Shaw, and my old teacher Jerry Bergonzi. I'll show you a little bit about what you can do. There's obviously almost infinite possible ways of using rhythm to create certain contrast or to create tension and release in your improvisations, but I'll show you two that I like to use that I think are interesting and will give you a good representation of the possibilities in this circumstance. We're all familiar with the possibility of using 3/4 or using quarter note or eighth note triplets over a measure of 4/4 time. But that's so common, especially in jazz, that it's not really particularly exciting to talk about in this context, and it doesn't really create the kind of rhythmic dissonance that I'm talking about here. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn it up a notch, and we're going to try quintuplets. Quintuplets creates an additional kind of rhythmic dissonance that is a really interesting feel and will, I think, add a little excitement to your improvisations. And I'll show you a little bit about how to practice that. So, the first thing you want to do is to get the sound of the quintuplets in your head. Quintuplets over 4/4 time are fairly unstable, so you have this sort of unstable rhythmic thing happening that you can use to come up with some pretty creative lines. There are two ways that I like to practice hearing quintuplets. One is to take a word or phrase that has 5 syllables evenly spaced out, and you can use that as a means of hearing quintuplets in time. So, I particularly like hippopotamus. Hippopotamus is hippopotamus, that's 5, and you can put that in time. 1, 2, 3, 4, hippopotamus, 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 hippopotamus. That'll give you the idea of what it sounds like to be playing in 5/4. Over 2, rather, 5/2. So what it is the quintuplets are going to be 5 notes in the space of 2 quarter notes. Let me make that abundantly clear. Another thing you can do is, as with all rhythmic practices, you can take out your trusty metronome. I was going to use my phone, but I'll use a real metronome. Real digital metronome from like 1989. Let's turn that on here. We're going to give it 2 beats. I'm just going to show you how I do this. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Take it slow at first. The goal is just to get acclimated to playing quintuplets. So, one thing that you can do is just take a 5-note scale and run it up and down the scale. Obviously, the pentatonic scale is good for this because you get 5 notes. Your job in doing this is to get the notes to be as even as possible over those 2 beats as possible. Hippopotamus, 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 hippopotamus. You don't want to go ba 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 ba. The notes have to be evenly spaced across those 2 beats. So, if I'm playing it with, let's say, the C major pentatonic scale for me on trumpet, that's going to sound like this. As you get increasingly used to the unstable feel of playing 5/2, then you can start to invent melodies using that kind of rhythmic approach. and try to land on a stable beat so that you can find your way back to where you are starting out. Now, it's important to do this with a metronome so that the metronome will keep the time for you, and as you get increasingly comfortable with that approach, you can turn the metronome up little by little in order to be able to play this at faster tempos. All right, so in order to do a little demonstration of what that might sound like in an actual musical context, we're bringing in my friends Jesse Lynch and Evan Hyde and Julian Smith in order to lay down the rhythm section so that you can hear what it sounds like to use some of this rhythmic dissonance in quintuplets over a real piece of music. And that is going to sound like this. All right, now you got a handle on the sound of quintuplets. We're turning it up to septuplets. Septuplets are fun as well, creates quite a lot of rhythmic dissonance, especially because putting 7 notes in the space of 2 quarter notes is so close to putting 8 16th notes in the space of 2 quarter notes that it really causes quite a bit of rhythmic dissonance, and it can be tricky to hold on to. So, just like with my phrase hippopotamus from quintuplets, we are going to use the phrase individuality to get a sense for the feel of 7 notes over 2 beats. So I'm going to turn my trusty metronome on here, and that is going to sound like this. Individuality, 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 individuality. All right, that's a little tricky. You got to think about it because it's got to fall right in where the beats are. But you can practice that just to get a sound for. Now even then, I'm really trying hard not to fall into just straight 16th notes and try to hold back to really get the sound of those septuplets. Another way that you can practice septuplets, not only hearing them, but getting them under your fingers on the instrument, is just to play the major scale, which has 7 notes in it. And then when you get to the top note of the scale, you will turn around and go back down again. So that gives you a sound that goes like this. As you practice this, your goal is always to land back on 1 and to be very focused in on where 1 is so that you can make sure that you're spreading that time out evenly across the 2 beats to really create that sound of rhythmic dissonance. As you get comfortable with that, then you can start improvising lines using that kind of approach to time. That might sound a little something like this. And once again there, your goal is always to be landing back on 1 to ensure that you've spread those 7 notes out evenly amongst the 2 quarter notes. So, with that in mind, let's go back to the rhythm section, and I will show you a little demonstration on how I might use those septuplets in an improvised solo, as well as transitioning from those septuplets back into a more conventional approach to rhythm. And that's going to sound a little something like this. All right, gang, and there you have it, a little approach to playing outside the time, using rhythmic dissonance to give your improvised solos a little extra spice. Check that out. Try those different ideas out. You can also incorporate triplets. You can also incorporate all kinds of different, I mean, this is endless. You could do anything you want with this time, playing time over time. You could play a temporally, a time, a temper, whatever it would be. You can play out of time over time. There are just endless possibilities for the ways that you can approach time, really infinite possibilities. So you can play around with that. As with any of this stuff, when I'm improvising using this material, I'm not thinking consciously, unless I'm doing a demonstration with a rhythm section for these videos, about what I'm doing. I'm trying to use these for a greater musical effect. So I may incorporate various different times with various different approaches to playing outside the changes, with various different timbral approaches. All of them go into the soup that is an organic improvisation. And you can practice different ways of using these techniques to spice up the way that you're playing. But I hope this helps in your quest for the majesty of musical self-expression as improvisers, and I hope that you will try some of these ideas out and see what you think for yourself. And then also, be sure to expand on these ideas and create new concepts for yourself. It's always a good time to try to push your limits and to try out different techniques. All right, gang, if you like this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be putting out some more videos on jazz and improvisation and trumpet and music theory and the like. Thanks a lot. I hope you had some fun with playing outside the changes, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.
Theory with Bob.
All right, friends, thanks so much for checking out this video. We hope it helps in your quest for the majesty of musical self-expression. If you like what we're doing here, you can give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. And if you'd like to support the creation of new videos like this, you can become a subscriber on our Patreon page at patreon.com/Ridgewood School of Music. There, subscribers will have access to more in-depth follow-up videos, as well as solo transcriptions, various musical exercises, and all kinds of fun stuff. If you'd like to follow me on my musical adventures, you can find me on Instagram at Bob Spellman, and you can follow the Ridgewood School of Music's other social media pages by following the links in the description below. The Ridgewood School of Music is currently accepting new students online or in person in the New York City area. If you're interested in lessons, you can find us at www.ridgewoodschoolofmusic.com, or you can send us an email at ridgewoodschoolofmusic@gmail.com, and we can set you up with a great teacher for the instrument and the style of music that you're interested in studying. All right, gang, well, have a wonderful time practicing, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.